I continue to work with my father till this day. It's 11 years that we've been together, and it's just such a blessing for me, and he's a tremendous and great man to work with. Um, so that's a little more in-depth history of how I came into this and how I got to where I am today. Um, how I got to know Mike is a whole nother story. When we had JAI Press, we started a journal called the Internet in Higher Education with Stan Hanna at Inova and Mike Harris and Pam Harris. Um, and I felt that the concept of that journal was something that was right on the cutting edge for where publishing needed to go. The concept of that journal came about through my father and myself. At the time, there were no other publishers, academic publishers, I should say. Some university presses were publishing in the area of the internet and higher ed, but not many academic publishers. So with the introduction of this journal, I felt the concept, like I said, was just one that was right on the edge. So when I started Information Age, I went back to Stan and said, listen, I want to see what's the latest thing going on. He said, for academics in our area that we're looking for is something on distance education. And so I said, well, can you recommend anybody? And he said, I have a person that I work with here at Nova that would be, right for taking on such a project. In came Mike Simonson. Um, I didn't know Mike at all. Mike and I had several conference calls. Charlie Schlosser came into the picture, and the three of us launched the Quarterly Review of Distance Education. And to our surprise, it's just been great, and it's been very well accepted through the academic community as well as the practitioners community. And with the way that publishing is going for us in this industry, it's consolidating by leaps and bounds. More and more private companies are being bought out by companies such as, and they're mostly European companies, whether it be Elsevier Science, Kluwer, which was just sold to a venture capitalist firm in England by the name of Cinven Group, or Taylor and Francis is another large one in Europe. And so the consolidation of the industry is causing it for many of us publishers to look more towards the practitioner side of where's our outlets and where do we go from here. So, what we're looking at is how do we develop product in the field of distance education, distance learning, and how will that affect our industry going forward. We feel that distance education and distance learning, as we look at that as one, is the wave of the future, because we think that more and more people with less and less time to do things can do it online, whether it's online classes or whether it's just testing or any number of things. So, Mike also asked me, so, well, tell the students how they can get published in this day and age. To me, it's real simple. I mean, we have a outsider advisory board that when we receive manuscripts or we receive any material, we send it out to people such as Mike, or Mike will send it to Gary, and they have a number of colleagues in the field that we rely on. It's the professionals in the field that will determine where the industry is going. It's not so much the publisher. Primarily, a publisher's job is the manufacturing, marketing, and distribution of material. We feel that 99% of what makes up a publisher's list depends on what our network of what we call colleagues in the field have to say and what their professional opinion is. It's still a publish or perish world no matter what anybody says. What does that mean? It means that in order for people in the academic community to survive, they still have to publish, no matter how much money they bring in grants, which is a direction that many universities are looking at, and they're looking at that because so many universities are having their budgets cut so much that if a professor brings in a grant nowadays for $1 million, that's equivalent to them being the editor of a first-tier journal. And that's making it hard for private publishers as well as public publishers. But it's we still look at it as it's a publisher perish world, and they still have to put out good writing material in order to survive. Um, you also have associations such as USDLA. I know you heard from John Flores already, and we work with John and also Phil Harris. And Phil and John are both have great organizations that put out material as well. And for a private publisher, you're always up against that because many of these organizations are nonprofit organizations. So they will look at it and say, oh, we can publish it for a lot less. Well, the bottom line is they're an organization and they're not a publisher. And so we look at it and say, okay, we have an advantage over these organizations because we concentrate our efforts on our marketing, our distribution. And those are key factors that many organizations don't have. Not to say that they can't have the ability of doing that freelance or outside. Many organizations do that and do it very well. But when it comes to making it so that the academic professors and scholars get recognized for their work, many of them need, when they go back for their tenure or they go back for getting more money for grants, they need to know that this came from XYZ publisher. And so